Welcome to The Informant, the podcast that talks about anything and everything. We cover from sports, religion, politics, social, you name it. I'm your host as ever, Doc McLeod. So without any further ado, let's delve right into it. Good day, my good people. I hope I find you well, believing you are having a splendid day wherever you are. Right, I know previously we have been talking about the two main issues running with another half story. I'll tell you which one is the half story. First and foremost, it is the friction between the sitting president's camp and the VP's camp within the Zimbabwean politics. Right, and then we left that for a bit, we crossed borders. And we ended up finding ourselves in South Africa. It is the Zambian case of the former late president of Zambia, Edgar Lungu, who passed away in South Africa or passed on in South Africa. And the government wanted to repatriate his body. Basically, they won the case in the South African courts. I'll come and cover that. There's a lot that's happening, especially after that incident. But the Lungu family, represented by Esther, who's the widow of the late former president of Zambia, they filed in an appeal. Today, I'm moving away from those two cases and I'm going to bring you another case just from the blue to many people. This is the repatriation of the remains of Mbuya Nehanda and sekuru Kaguvi. You know, those were the spiritualists that helped Zimbabwe during the colonial era when they were fighting the colonization of the British to the Zimbabwean nation. They were the people that were leading spiritually, giving directions pertaining to everything. To those who don't know what actually happened, just their death alone, they actually are the ones who had to direct on how they could be killed because the white people had failed to kill them. So after being killed, their bodies or bones were taken or expatriated from Zimbabwe right to Britain, and they have since been kept in a museum. But finally, an agreement has been reached. The British authorities have finally granted the Zimbabweans permission to repatriate the remains of the first Umvukela, as they call it. The government has started the preliminary preparations for the return of the remains, which include those of the referred figures, such as Mbuya Nehanda, sekuru Kaguvi, Chief Chinengundu Mashayamombe, and Chief Chingaira Makoni, leaders of the 1890s resistance against the British colonial rule. So all that now is in motion, and the preliminary rounds have started. An international ministerial committee has now been formed to oversee the repatriation process. The team includes representatives from the Ministry of Home Affairs, Cultural Heritage, Government, and Public Works. Its mandate that they've been given, its mandate that they've been given includes coordinating and consulting key stakeholders, including traditional leaders and descendants of the fallen heroes. The committee recently held a high-level meeting with traditional leaders and family representatives to agree on cultural protocols and funding mechanism. So to Zimbabweans, when you start to hear about the new chief wanting Zimbabwe to move from being a republic and all that, it's all because of these things that have been happening behind the scenes. Remember, when I broke the news to you about this, it's because we knew, basically, I knew I was informed about what's happening. This had already started negotiations, knowing that they are almost reaching an agreement. In fact, an agreement had been reached, but not signed up to confirm agreement. That's when we had realized that the bodies were now being planned to be repatriated from the British Museum right to Zimbabwe. So the permanent secretary for the Ministry of Home Affairs and Cultural Heritage, Ambassador Raphael Faranisi, He confirmed in the process, and he has officially now entered in the initial phase to the preparation of the expatriation of the bodies. He said, we have started the first phase of the process, and which we hope will be done in the shortest possible time, said Ambassador Faranisi. He is already leading in that, and I can tell you that it's almost 75, if not 90% complete, that the bones be expatriated to Zimbabwe. Recently, they met to discuss the resource mobilization, and they also met to discuss about the construction of a storage facility which will help to preserve the remains. And it will also give a formal program for the repatriation, which will be presented to the relative authorities for approval. They cannot just do these things without the government involved. But one thing I can tell you, the government is already involved, seriously involved. So when we talk about the chief for Zimbabwe wanting to change its position from being a republic nation into, you all know now the situation pertaining Zimbabwe, it's already things that were in motion. So when people start to react, to respond, they should know that most of the time they are responding to things that are already in motion. You are made to know about certain processes when they are almost 75, if not 80% there, because they know there will be a lot of talk to try and destabilize, if not distract, the processes. So a senior official from the National Museums and Monuments of Zimbabwe spoke anonymously and confirmed the formal repatriations can now begin. So be very ready. I remember when I was in Zimbabwe just some time back, not very far back, just some time back. One car which we call mushika shika in Zimbabwe. You know, those small commuting vehicles that carry people about. One guy was driving on it on Leopold Takawira, and by mistake on the way almost to Parenya, to those who know Harare, close to the Avondale area there, and he hit the tree where Mbuya Nehanda was hung. That guy got into serious trouble. It's like he had hit the motorcade for the president after he only hit the tree. And guess what? Every leaf that dropped from that tree was gathered carefully and respectfully, was gathered into a proper box and taken right, I think, for proper burial. In case you never heard about those things, it happened that one when I was in Zimbabwe. So I was one of the people who actually witnessed. It happened when I was almost there. I remember the day very, very much. I was with some of my friends, and we were passing when that incident happened. You know, I've never seen people being made to be busy, especially after such an incident. It shows you how the government reverences our tradition. It shows you how the government reverences our culture. As much as some of us are Christians, we also have to respect the culture of our nation. So for that, just know that the bones of the late former heroes of the defending heroes of our nation are now going to be released from the British museums right back to Zimbabwe. The remains being returned are going to be were looted during the colonial period following the brutal suppression of the first Umvukwe. Many resistant leaders were executed and beheaded, with their skulls sent to Europe as trophies or subject of racial and anthropological study. For Zimbabwe, the remains have long been seen as a painful symbol of colonial injustice and cultural desecration. So succession governments have made calls for the return, but progress stalled until now. So it is now at this point in time where everything is now moving smoothly. And I can tell you it's already started. The repatriation is now going to start at the earliest possible time. Most recently in 2024, to those that have been following or were informed pertaining to this, in 2024, a UK returned 32 looted Asante treasures to Ghana under a 6-year loan deal with the British Museum and the Victoria and Albert Museum. So it has already happened in Ghana where the Asante treasures were returned. So this time, it's a breakthrough for Zimbabwe, where the bones of the late Mbuya Nehanda and Sekuru Kaguvi, who are the two most popular medium spirits, or people that possess the medium spirits that people believe were leading Zimbabwe during the wartime, their bones, remains, are now going to be expatriated back to Zimbabwe. As a nation, it marks the Heroes' Day. As the nation marks its Heroes' Day, this is supposed to be one of the things that's going to be presented. And you will see that from the celebration of our independence, from the celebration of our heroes, it's now going to be more cultural than it was before during the time of the late former founding father of Zimbabwe, Robert Gabriel Mugabe, with the taking over of a sitting president, Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa. Things have turned more to being more cultural than ever. So, as the nation marks its Heroes' Day, the impending return serves as a poignant reminder of history interrupted and now slowly being reclaimed. So it is said to be a mark of honor to the retaining of our cultural order. Just news for you, just for you to know. To some people, they say it's not important, but to other people, they see it as a very, very significant move, which is going to reinstate what they call order and respect to those that were speaking during the time of the colonial suppression fighting. And I think we all will go with our culture, believing you're all